They call me King, Hope, Copy. Big ballin' is my hobby. So much so they think I'm down with the Illuminati. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. I was just singing one of my favorite Jay-Z songs, Hottie Toddy, which actually reminds me of the book The Power of 12 by William Gladstone, which we're here to talk about today. And I'll get to why it reminds me of that in just a moment. First, of course, I'd like to welcome you all here for another BookTrib live chat. We're so excited to have you with us. Join us for other BookTrib happenings on BookTrib.com by signing up. It's free, it's easy, and you'll get information on all the fun stuff we're doing on BookTrib, like giveaways, blog tours, reviews, podcasts, videos, and so much more. We always love expanding our book lovers community, so check that out after the live chat. So back to The Power of 12. It examines the role of the Illuminati, just like Jay-Z mentions in his song, and the accumulation of mega wealth by a very small percentage of humans on our planet. Although the book is fiction, it does deal with very real issues that are going on right now. And one of the most important issues that our planet needs to address is that it's not 1%. It is not 1/10 of 1%. It is actually 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of 1% who are controlling 90% of the wealth. That is a crazy number, crazy. And you can hear William talk about that more after the chat if you check out his website, 12thebook.com. That's 1, 2, the numbers 1, 2, thebook.com. He just posted an awesome video talking all about the book and our planet. And now to William. He is co-author of the books Tapping the Source, The Golden Motorcycle Gang, and author of the international best-selling novel, The 12. His newest novel, of course, The Power of 12, a novel that reveals why the world will not end in your lifetime, is out now, and you can be lucky enough to win this book if you stick around to the very end of the chat. William will be announcing the lucky winner. So without any further ado, I am going to welcome our guest of honor on screen so he can tell you even more about himself and his very impressive resume in the book world. So there he is waiting. I see him smiling.
Can you hear me?
Hi, William.
It's a pleasure to be on your show. That was a wonderful introduction. I can see you have fun and enjoy what you're doing.
Thank you. Actually, I can hear you, yes. Okay, so I'm going to put you on screen by yourself and let you have the floor. Okay?
So, readers out there, if you're looking for a fun book that actually is related to what's going on in the world today, The Power of 12, I'm sure you're going to enjoy. The book is far-ranging. It does start on the premise that I ended the 12 with, which was that the Mayan calendar was not a symbol for the end of the world or the end of time, but the end of a 26,000-year cycle, and a new cycle is beginning. And I chose that theme for the 12 because as an anthropologist, I had interviewed many shamans in many different cultures, including, of course, the Mayan. And this is the actual belief of indigenous people, that we are not in danger of the world ending, but there is actually the possibility of human life ending. And that is not about so much even global warming and some of the issues that are real that we do need to address, but our own human behavior. From the perspective of indigenous wisdom, human beings today are off on the wrong track, much too focused on their material needs and not enough on what we might call their spiritual needs. So in The Power of 12, I incorporate some of this new awareness, which is actually occurring throughout the planet, that we are collectively one consciousness, part of one divine being, if you will. And that new consciousness is unfortunately in opposition to what many of us refer to as the old paradigm. The old paradigm is sort of divide and conquer and greed and survival and fear. And in my novel, The Power of 12, I use the convention of the Illuminati. Obviously, we know that the Illuminati did exist at one time on this planet. They probably don't, as an organized group, exist at this time. Different people will debate that and have different views. But it really doesn't matter, because the bottom line for the world as it actually exists is that a very small number of families, the estimates range anywhere from 3,000 to 30,000, control over 50% of the wealth on our planet. In my novel, The Power of 12, I and taking liberties. It's a novel. I don't have to get all my facts accurate. So I just picked arbitrarily 319 families controlling over 90% of the wealth on planet Earth. And I have as my main bad guy character Arnold Wheeler Dealer, who is the grand light and keeper of the code for the Illuminati, and who in his own mind feels that he knows best and that the more he can control everything that happens on this planet, from using GMO food to controlling diamond output, to controlling oil output, is for the betterment of the world, because he doesn't trust the average person. Of course, opposed to that, we have the new thinking, which is that feminine energy, and this is embodied in a character we call Gail Newhouse, who has a book, Full Feminine Power Now, and she started to gain momentum. And the Illuminati see her as dangerous because they don't want people looking at anything other than the status quo for how they're organizing themselves, because change is not necessarily good for those who are controlling power. And unfortunately, this does really reflect what is happening on the planet right now, even in our own country. I mean, I'm just appalled by the recent fiasco in Washington, where the only thing they could agree on is they all keep their slush funds, but they can't agree on much else. We'll probably have another budget crisis, shortly. It's not going away because our leaders have kind of lost focus that they're here to serve us and not for us to serve them. Anyway, these are the main themes of the Power 12, and it does have some science fiction elements. I introduced concepts such as the Council of 12, which is, in some people's mind, a real council of interstellar beings with whom they communicate. At least I've talked to people who believe it. For me, it's a fictional device. There's a planet, which I have to say it is fictional, so I did have an out-of-body experience. For those of you who don't believe in out-of-body experiences, excuse me, I happen to have had one, and I did visit an orange planet. I wrote about that somewhat, giving the experience to the character of Max in the novel The 12. So I chose that planet, which I had actually sort of seen, whether you think it's a dream or real experience, doesn't really matter. And then events occur on that planet, which are related to the events on planet Earth. One of the tactics that the Council of 12 decides to employ is to have 4 members of the Council of 12 become walk-ins. In other words, they take over human form, co-inhabit with human beings as a way of trying to see if they can deal with the problems that the Illuminati are creating. So I don't know if that leaves time to have any questions, or if you want further explanation of more details from the novel. Do I read my own reviews, and do they help or hurt? Well, clearly, when people don't like your book, it hurts. You want everybody to like your book. But, other than that, they don't actually help. I mean, it does help if somebody likes it. It gives you more enthusiasm and more courage and keep writing. Because no matter what level of success you have, you're only as good as your last book on some level. So we like to see good reviews. The more the better. Let's see. What is the most profound change you have seen in publishing in the past decade? Well, the most profound change has been the shift from traditional print to digital. I actually was the earliest innovator in launching the very first eBooks. It was launched as Select Books. I believe it was launched in '99 or 2000. And obviously, we were much too early. We sold about 6 copies of our first ebook, and after a year of not selling a whole lot more, we shut it down. Of course, now, just last year, we started our Waterfront Digital Press as an ebook publishing company, and we've actually sold as many as 50,000 copies of some of our ebooks. But the biggest change for everyone is this change from print to digital, and the other change, which is directly related, is the rise of Amazon. 10 years ago, Amazon maybe accounted for 5% of sales of that. Today, if you include digital, they're accounting for more than 50% of sales. They account for 30% of print sales, and then, of course, they account for more than 50% of digital. So that's a huge change in this industry. The number of bookstores, physical bookstores, is shrinking. Borders went out of business. Barnes & Noble dedicates less than half of its shelf space to books, because books compared to electronic devices and even coffee and candy doesn't have the same margins. So our industry has changed a lot, and I'm afraid not necessarily for the better. It really depends on your perspective. If you're a whiz at using digital media, it actually is a blessing because you don't even have to worry about traditional print and getting your book into bookstores. It's not easy to do. And there have been at least 100 authors who have started with ebooks and found a way to become best-selling authors and then reverse back into the print, including the biggest publishing phenomenon of the last year, which is 50 Shades of Grey. Started as an ebook. Probably would have never even made it into print had it not had that huge. Next question came in is from Andrew, and it's, how difficult was it for you to change professional hats? Actually, it's not difficult at all. Both come naturally to me. I like people. I like helping people. I see my role really as just facilitating, getting a great book in front of a great editor and having a great marriage happen and enjoying the success. It's actually harder and harder to make those marriages happen because increasingly it's almost like you have to bring a dowry to the marriage if you're an author. And unless your dowry is, having sold 100,000 copies of your previous book or having 1 million followers on your radio show or TV show, you're not going to find a major publisher. I've always enjoyed writing. I actually intended to be a writer before I became an agent. I started writing when I was very young. Really started by keeping a journal. I was inspired by Camus, who kept a journal. And, so I've been writing, pretty much on a regular basis for almost 40 years. And, the only hard part about being an author is, for me anyway, having to think about promoting the book after it's written. That requires a lot more planning and effort. You need, wonderful to be on live chat, and but you need someone to organize that, to research where should you be promoting your book, how should you be promoting your book, and it's a big time commitment to be promoting the book. I actually probably will end up spending more time promoting The Power of 12 than I actually spent writing, which seems a little unbalanced to me. And obviously, not every writer has to spend that amount of time promoting their books. And once you're, become a very big time author, the book is selling itself because you have enough readers who are waiting for your book. Okay, this is an interesting question from Catherine. What mistake have you made that at the time seemed disastrous, but now you know to have been a life lesson? Well, there's so many. In my life, at least, almost everything has been serendipitous. The worst mistakes have often been blessings. Probably the worst mistake I made was disclosing some information at a lunch that I thought was confidential, and there was a reporter there, and I had told the reporter everything is off the record, but he was a stringer and didn't understand. It was San Diego 30 years ago. He was very unsophisticated, and he didn't understand that that meant he wasn't allowed to report the information that I was sharing with another person at the table. And he did report it, and it was some confidential information, and it cost me my job at Harcourt Brace Jovanovich, where I was senior editor at the time in San Diego. And ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. I had to start my own company. I started Waterside Productions soon thereafter. Even though I started the company to produce films, many of the books I had signed to publish as senior editor at Harcourt were canceled. The books were, I've always been interested in esoteric and in leading edge, cutting edge ideas. There's no editor left after I left the company who understood the books I had signed up. So books like An Arrow Through Time, I think the Rainbow was the original title I inherited, books about how it's actually possible to predict the future from a scientific point of view, and other esoteric books and controversial books. I've always been one to go after controversy. Dr. Virginia Livingston Wheeler was one of the books that was canceled. She was the first female intern in New York City and the first medical doctor to see the relevance of diet to cancer. And she had written a book, and so that was actually the first book that I ever sold. So Mistakes, they happen all the time. I'm sure there's been some mistakes in my own writing that have really made my books better, where I wrote something that I didn't intend to write, and then afterwards realized that it led to more opportunities to develop my characters and my plot than I may have originally thought. So particularly when you're doing a creative process, I think mistakes are not even mistakes, they're just part of the creative process. And I have talked with scientists who have told me that some of their greatest discoveries have come from errors that they made in their protocols and putting chemicals together that they hadn't intended and having remarkable results. So I'm all for mistakes. The more of them, the better. Okay, I'm actually not writing another book right now. I have a policy when I'm doing my promotion, and I usually do about 2-3 months of active promotion on a book that I just published. I don't have another writing project going. Part of that is because I do have a regular job as an agent, so I'm always writing. I am blogging 3 times a week. And you can go to, we've actually changed the site. It's still onetothebook.com, but you can also go to williamgladstone.org and you can see all my blogs. And so the blogging is keeping my writing active. And I do have some ideas for additional novels. I also have some nonfiction books that I'm probably going to be writing. So I have 3 or 4 projects in my head right now, but I'm not really going to start seriously writing my next book probably until January or February when I'm done with the promotion side of the power as well. And so if I start writing in January, the next book probably won't be published until sometime early 2015. Could be later 2015. The next question is, what do you want your readers to take away from the Power of 12? Well, the most important thing is I want readers to have a good time. I want them to laugh. I've put in a lot of humor in the book, particularly the chapter on W. Bush, called The Belching Bush. And I went to school with George, so it's all in good fun. Not a fan of his politics, but personally. And there's humor throughout the book. There's some funny scenes. But it's also a book that I hope readers will take seriously. There's a lot of ideas in the book about the Akashic Record, about the possibility of communication with intelligence, not necessarily extraterrestrials per se, but what scientists are now calling the 0 point, where all information exists both future and past. And we're learning more and more about the true nature of reality. And what we experience as reality with linear time is not the real reality that exists eternally. So I'd like to get people thinking sort of philosophically about some of these ideas and why they're here as human beings and what they can do to make this world a better place. Reality is thought forms, and this is sort of one of the motifs of the novel, The Power of 12. Thought forms are actually more important, potentially, than the effects of those thought forms. So what you think really does matter, and what we think collectively, the idea that we really are one human consciousness, is probably the biggest idea I have in the book. And then I do throw out, on a fictional basis, the idea of Project Wake Up as a practical solution for raising people's awareness and consciousness. And from my perspective, the raising of humanity's consciousness is job one. If everyone was coming from a very aware space, a lot of the problems that we're presently experiencing would solve themselves because we'd be looking at the problems from a different perspective. So I think that there's a lot of value to the book. It's the kind of book you can give to a friend who thinks, some of these ideas are complete rubbish, and they'll still have a good time reading the book. And who knows, maybe in a small way, they will alter their own thinking about the nature of the universe. I certainly get away from the idea that we live in a dog-eat-dog world, survival of the fittest. These are really outdated ideas that only in very limited context are true. And with the massive communications we have today, primarily the internet and mass media, we are so much more connected as a human species than at any other time in the history of our planet that these local strategies, if you will, for survival and dominance are becoming increasingly ineffective for true happiness. Because even if you're living well, you can't help but be aware that there's 2 billion people going to bed hungry every day on this planet, and it's hard to be enjoying your luxuries when you know that there's so many other people suffering, and you can actually see suffering. So I think that we're living in a different world. I'm an optimist. I think we're going to solve a lot of these problems, but only if we, wake up and pay attention. Okay, the next question. I have several ideas. How do you choose which one to write next? Well, how do I choose? It's a combination of factors. The last book, actually, and most of my books are chosen for me. I say that because I have friends and I have associates, and they say, Phil, I'd really like to know what happens next to the characters in the 12. Write the sequel. And it was actually my German publisher who said, we had such success with the book in Germany, they're waiting for the next one. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I started it, and I had fun doing it. Some of the other ideas that are floating around, I actually wrote a novel when I was in my mid-20s called Suicide Plus, which was, the typical coming-of-age novel. And at the time, I almost got it published, but my editor, I had already published nonfiction books, said, you're just not well-known enough, and we think the writing is similar to Joyce's portrait of the artist as a young man, and it's very well written, but it's just not that commercial. So I put that on a shelf, and I may just go back and rewrite it, bring it up to date. I also have a couple of books that I wrote many years ago that were written for specific purposes. One, Be the Deal, was written at the time we launched the first print-on-demand book publishing company. And I wrote the book literally in a week, and it was pretty much a semi-autobiographical business manual. And we got the book out to show that it could be print-on-demand, first solo authored book ever. And actually sold about 500 copies, but we didn't do it for that purpose. We just wanted to demonstrate technology. And found out recently that a law firm in Chicago is ordering the book and insisting that every first-year associate read the book, because I have a very win-win orientation on how I think negotiations should go and how business should go. So it's possible that that'll be a book that I'll revisit and bring up to date. So I've got a couple of projects like that. My favorite TV show. Well, I actually have 3 or 4. I got hooked on the Junior Master Chef, mainly because there's this one 9-year-old contestant, Sarah, who's so adorable and such a talented chef. I do like to cook myself, and I watch cooking shows from time to time. But this one, I think it's only got 2 or 3 episodes left. The one with Gordon Ramsay and his associates. Really a lot of fun, and watching these kids, just the pure joy and their emotions. It's not rehearsed; it's real reality TV. I also like The Good Wife. I think it's very well written. They always keep you guessing what's going to happen next. Good acting. And I like Parenthood a lot. I'm a dad, and both my children are either married or engaged. So probably within a couple of years, I'll be experiencing what it's like to be a grandparent. I think there's a lot of fun in that Parenthood show, and a lot of fun. So those are some of my favorite shows. Trying to see here the next question. What is a fact that people don't know about me that they should know? Well, I don't know if they should know it. I really enjoy tennis and golf, and I think I'm the current reigning poinsettia champion here in Encinitas, California. That's our golf course, Encinitas Ranch. Doesn't mean a whole lot. I like to tell everyone I'm the best of the worst in the golf world, because they rank you by your handicap, and I'm in the bottom section of handicap, but I am the best of the bottom. And occasionally, when my game is really good, I become the worst of the middle. So, not sure anyone needs to know that about me, but it's a fun thing. Certainly, if you're a golfer, you'll appreciate being the best. This is an interesting question. How does your training in cultural anthropology play into your new book, The Power of 12 and sequel to 12? Well, I would not have been able to write either of these books had I not only training as an anthropologist, but the opportunity to travel around the world. Half of that experience was not directly due to my anthropology, it led to me receiving a scholarship to study anthropology at Harvard University. Right out of Yale, I had the wonderful opportunity to serve as the researcher and actual production coordinator for Rod Serling's documentary film In Search of Ancient Mysteries. And through that adventure, I traveled all over the planet, literally, in search of ancient mysteries. That was my job description. So I went down to the Nazca Lines in Peru. I went to Machu Picchu. I went to the caves of Lascaux in France. I went to shrines in Japan and in India. I went to museums in Great Britain and the United States, looking for objects that might be filmable as possible representations of ancient aircraft. These documentary Chariots of God. Then when I was at Harvard, I actually studied with one of the foremost anthropologist experts in Chiapas, the home of Maya. And I had always had a fascination with the Mayan calendar. And so part of my studies in anthropology led me to investigate the Mayan calendar. And the Mayan calendar is really at the heart of my first novel, 12, and leads directly to the power of 12. And in some ways, the power of 12 is more universal because it's not just the Mayan who have predicted the end of this cycle and the beginning of what many cultures feel will be a better age, whether it's golden age or silver age, the age of enlightenment, or some cultures even say heaven on earth. And this is really about the belief that we are about to enter a time where spiritual values are going to come to the forefront. And that will create better results on the material level. Not necessarily more of things, but more sharing of things, more enjoyment of things. And great respect for ancient civilizations with far fewer material objects, far less visible technology, were able to create aesthetically beautiful lives that had great meaning, purpose, and joy. And that's really the bottom line for a human being. Lives of purpose, meaning, joy, not so much about accumulation, not so much about having more toys. I think we all enjoy our toys and our material possessions. But in the end, you are not going to leave here with your material possessions. You will leave here with your experience. I know for those who don't believe in any kind of eternal life, that may be, and my father was one of them, he was a chemist, and I remember him on his deathbed, saying, "Hey, Dad, what do you think is going to happen?" And his dad says, "Well, I know what's going to happen. I'm a chemist. My chemicals will, reinsert themselves into the cycle of life, but that's it. I'm a human being." And my own experience, having had a near-death experience when I was very young, is that that's not really what's going to happen. Your consciousness does not cease when you die. And you're going to leave, and have a chance to review what you did here on Earth. And, it's all good because in the perspective, at least my experience, that millions of other people who have shared their near-death experiences, there is no real judgment out there. We come, we do the best we can as human beings, we have lessons to learn. We learn them, but we're really all part of the divine. And our real mission here on Earth is to experience the joy of existence, the miracle of life. And it's not about having the most toys to do that. Next question, more practical. Do you have any say in your book covers? Yes, I do. And am I happy the way they turned out? I'm delighted. I love my book covers. I think I've been very, very fortunate to work with great book designers. And I had some ideas, particularly in Power 12, where a lot of the action takes place at this beautiful chateau, the Chateau Massili in the Republic of Czechoslovakia. And so I got some pictures of the chateau, and they're incorporated into the design. And we also had a theme of sort of the abuse of presidential power, so the seal of our republic is also important. So there's some very nice elements which are very reflective of the book itself. This is interesting. This is the second person in 2 days who has mentioned this book, Messages from Michael, and I have not read it. And I think, certainly if I hear one more person recommend it, I'm going to have to go out and read it. I have this idea that things come in threes, but unfortunately it's not. My favorite book to movie adaptation. Probably would have to say it's Gone with the Wind. I think that's a great movie, and it's an old movie, of course. In terms of newer works, I think they've done a great job with some of the Grisham novels. They've worked very well. Don't see another question. Ah, here it is. Okay, next question. You write both fiction and nonfiction. For purposes of process, what do you find to be the commonality between the two, and what's the biggest difference? Well, the commonality in terms of process is if you're going to be a writer, you better take it seriously. And that means setting aside specific time and a schedule to write and not letting anything interfere with that schedule. So if you have a full-time job, and I think most writers do, choose a time, either early morning or late evening if you're going to write during the week, or choose time on the weekends, or a combination of all three, which is what I do. And set aside that time, and no matter what is going on, write. And I find that I don't really need to be inspired to write. We'll get into the differences. It's actually much easier for me to write nonfiction than fiction. My process with fiction is I usually go to the beach and take a walk for an hour or two before sitting down to write. And I really don't need more than about 2 hours blocked out for actual writing. So I can choose, usually it's either first thing on a weekend or later in the day or evening work is completed. And I'll just sit down and I'll write, and I won't get up from writing, just to maybe get a drink of water or something, until I have finished at least one chapter. And as long as I've done at least one chapter, and that's one of the reasons my chapters are rather small, some of them 5 to 6 pages, but I can get on a roll, and some chapters might be 20 pages. And just be confident that, no matter what I'm feeling at the time I'm writing, that I'll get a chance to reread it, make changes, or delete it later if I don't like it, but have enough material written so that I will finish the book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, a reasonable amount of time. Nonfiction is much easier, because nonfiction really just needs to outline your book, outline your chapters, and then the same thing. Set it time. I need much less inspiration for nonfiction, because it's almost like solving a math problem. Here's the chapter. Here's what we hope to achieve in this chapter. We start here. We have the middle. We have the end. Chapter completed. Back to golfing, tennis. Next day, do it again. So for me, and I may not be the best person to ask everything, writing is really effortless. Something that I've always been able to do. I was told when I was very young that I had a talent for writing. I actually didn't pursue it more because my father was a publisher, he was a book publisher, and he said, the chances of making any money as a writer, very, very slim. 1 out of 1,000 writers make enough money to support themselves, and probably only 1 out of 10 to 20,000 make enough to support themselves well. So I was discouraged from looking at writing as a real career. Sort of fell into the aging. I was intending to be a book publisher, things went awry, and sort of back into the writing as more of a hobby than a profession. And fortunately, my books do sell, and if I wanted to stop aging, I probably could become a full-time writer. But I really like the balance of interacting more with people and doing my aging. Next question is, would you agree to co-author again in the future, or do you plan to continue your solo effort? There are different experiences, and there's pluses and minuses of each. I mean, it was a real pleasure for me to co-author the Golden Motorcycle Gang with Jack Canfield. I learned a lot about writing, and I learned a lot about Jack, and it was just enjoyable to interact with him. That said, it was also a little bit frustrating because my schedule was much more open for the writing than John's. So it was not easy to set aside time for him to review what I would write and to have discussions and brainstorm where we would take the novel. But that aside, I have no problem at all with co-writing as long as you choose the right collaborator. It's easier to write just yourself. That's probably my preference. But it really does depend on the project. There's some amazing people that I'm representing who may want me to write books with them and get a chance to spend time with them and share their ideas with them. Co-author. Where I am right now is exactly where I write. This is the question that was asked. Yeah, I'm right. I happen to have a beautiful office and overlooks the ocean in Southern California, and there's plants all around me. And I have an extra large computer screen so I can see what's going on. And yeah, I'm very happy here. I'm near, the kitchen is not too far behind me. I can go there and give myself a snack if I need it, get a little extra energy. Yeah, so this is it. You're seeing, right, you can't see, I don't think, in the camera, but the keyboard is right in front of me, and see my sort of semi-messy desk back there where I have all the books that I'm either selling or have been submitted to me to represent. But yeah, I'm very comfortable here. This is a nice spot. This question is, what is your writing process like? Do you outline, use a storyboard, scribble on a napkin? Again, it's totally different whether it's fiction or nonfiction. With nonfiction, I do use an outline. I outline the book. I write the table of contents. I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly, what each chapter is going to be about and why. With fiction, no. I'm not sure how I write my novels at all. I start out with an idea. Sometimes, well, with the Power of 12, I didn't even know what the ending was going to be. With the 12, I knew specifically, actually, that was the only image I really had. I knew how that novel was going to end. I kept that image really for 30 years because it was originally going to be a screenplay. Still may be open. Still get lucky, make the big screen. But for that novel, it was really all about this idea of the end of the Mayan calendar, what that would look like, what would have to happen for that event to be meaningful to people who weren't necessarily interested in the Mayan calendar, but were interested in the state of the world. So that was the process there. In the Power of 12, the only part that I outlined at all was I did got some notes down for who the Council of 12 would be, because the Council of 12 really were the stars of the conception of the Power of 12. I have a novel called The Power of 12. And that came to me because I did meet someone who told me that they actually communicate with the Council of 12. And I thought that was very interesting, given my own connection with the number 12 and the whole essay that could even become a book that I've written on the importance of the number 12. So I'm fascinated by the number 12. And someone told me there was a Council of 12 that represents the real being, who was kind of overseeing the fate of the earth, if you will. That was really the inspiration for the Power of 12 and tying it into the Mayan calendar, some characters in the 12. And once I got started with that novel, I didn't really know where it was headed. I had these characters, and the characters started doing things, and the novel kind of took over on its own, and then I kept having to reel it in. And then, of course, one thing that I think is very important is that you need a good editor. And in all of my books, I'm fortunate, I know the publishing world, and I'm able to hire really good editors, even before the publisher, and my publisher in this case, Bella, excellent copy editors, but we didn't really focus on the developmental editor so much with Bella, but the publisher, Glenn, did give me some good pointers. He read the manuscript himself and said, I think you need more front matter for those who haven't read it as well. And then I hired my own editor who had worked on over 500 books, and that helped a lot. And that to me was more important, knowing where I was headed at the beginning of the novel, how the novel ends, and if you can correct any inconsistencies that you might insert inadvertently in your novel, all's well that ends well. So I'm much freer than probably many novelists with sort of wanting everything to fit from the very beginning. I want it all to fit. Next question here is, what advice would you give my 14-year-old self? Not any 14-year-old. Well, actually, I'd say self, do what you did. You know, start writing a journal. I started writing a journal when I was 15. If you really want to write, write. And, you know, don't necessarily think that the writing is going to be your paycheck. And for many years, it wasn't for me. It was just something that I did that I enjoyed, that I think it helped me understand myself better. It was creative and challenging and fun. Probably pretty much the same as for someone who enjoys painting. You know, when you sit down and you start painting, I don't think you're thinking about, you know, you're going to sell your picture for $50,000. You're thinking, this is fun. Let's see how it turns out. Let's see what I can create. And so that's my advice to myself, and you know, probably for most creative young people. Create because you love to create. Be true to yourself. Don't sell out no matter what. And you know, trust in the universe. The universe is, at least from my perspective, a benign place. And the universe does not really want you to suffer. So don't be afraid. Go for what you care most about, and always try to be good and kind. The next question is, any similarities between you and the power of 12 protagonists in Max, aside from having studied at Ivy League institutions? Well, even though my original book publicist told me I shouldn't harp on this too much, the reality is Max is really just a fictional version of my own experiences. The more outrageous the experience in the 12, the more likely that it was a real experience. Now, in the Power of 12, Max actually has a relatively small part, and that particular version of Max is no longer me at all. In the Power of 12, Max is the enlightened being that is actually the creator of the universe, not just a participant. And I do not have any connection with that character, or I have as much connection with that character as you or any other listener has, because I do believe that on one level, we all co-create the universe. Okay, someone is looking at the stack of books behind me. Anything worth reading in there? What's in the pile? Oh, we can take a second. Let me pull some books. This wasn't planned. I didn't know I was getting this question. So, what we have, first book here is Marmalade and Machine Guns by Linda Cruz. Linda is an amazing philanthropist. She gave up everything, and for the last 14 years, she's been on the front lines, everywhere from tsunamis to situations flying people in Afghanistan, Nepal, Africa. And we're just, this book was published in the UK last year, and we're in the process of reviewing it, which we've done, and we're going to find a good American publisher to bring it out to one of the books. One of the books that should have been there, I just gave it away though. This is his previous book, Soul Wisdom by Dr. Shigang Shah, Master and Dr. Shah. I have his new book, which actually I just received the first copy of 2 days ago. The book hit the bookstores November 12th. And Dr. Shah is one of the most amazing healers in the history of the world. And his new book, Soul Healing Miracles, actually incorporates healing modalities in the book itself. He's got icons and chants that, in fact, if you just lay your hand on the book, you're going to receive positive healing energy. And I've been with a lot of people, a lot of, you know, he's a medical doctor by training, and this is the real thing. I'm not sure how it all works. It does seem to relate to some of the ideas I have that the Akashic records may in fact be real, and that we actually can pull on the power of the universe in our own lives, not just for getting ideas, but also for healing. I think that's the basis, and it's combined with traditional. But anyone out there who has any kind of malady of any kind, strongly recommend when the book comes out in November. You can go to Amazon right now and order it. Soul Healing Miracles by Dr. Shah, S-H-A. Then another book that I represent, Tom Hartman's The Crash 2016. This book, I think, is officially published in about 2 weeks. Not sure the exact date. This is again advanced copies. I get advanced copies. Tom has a wonderful radio show. The most famous book to date is The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. He's one of the very first people to point out that it doesn't matter how conservative you may be in your use of fossil fuels. At some point, we're going to run out of fossil fuels, and we better come up with some alternatives. And that's a very important book. So in this new book, The Crash of 2016, is about some of the problems facing our world economy, or American economy specifically. But it's more than likely that there is going to be an economic correction, possibly the crash is very real. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but I'd rather be informed, so strongly recommend Tom's book. Then this is the galleys of a book, a new client for me, Amanda Owen, Born to Receive, 7 Powerful Steps Women Can Take Today to Reclaim Their Half of the Universe. And I'm interested in this because the whole theme of feminine energy and the rise of feminine energy and feminine power is at the heart of my own novel, Power of World. So I've got another half dozen books over there. And they're all one more interesting than the next. Also, I'll just show this just came in, and this is sort of why I like doing what I do. The Secret Path and Fate Laws: How Individuals Change History, a nonfiction book proposal from Stephen H. Schwartz. Stephen is the founder of the Mobius Group, the Schwartz Reports, and he's been at the forefront of cutting-edge scientific inquiry. And I'm glad to see he's got a book that is really talking about how focus on being is really at the heart of the Secret Path, and it's a very positive, hopeful book about how we as individuals, just with our own thoughts and working with others with similar thoughts, can make a huge difference in ensuring the world evolves in a positive rather than negative. Last question. So they want me to announce the winner of the Power of 12, and the winner is Connie Singh. So congratulations, Connie. And I thank you all for listening. It's been a lot of fun. I really think that they're doing a great job here. Veronica, who introduced me, obviously loves books. I'm all for people who love books. Everyone should get out there and buy a book today. I don't even care if it's my book. Just buy a book. We used to joke at my father's publishing company that our business would thrive if everyone who was writing a book would just go out and buy a book. Nothing wrong with writing books, but it's even more important to buy books. Buy books, read books, enjoy them. If you're on a limited budget, go to the library, take out a book, read a book.